Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The Global Outlook is sponsored by Maury's newsletter, Global Outlook. To get a complimentary copy, log on to our website, theworldreport.org. Is a much larger conflict awaiting as Russia now accuses Turkey of a secret alliance with ISIS. I'm not so sure if it was a secret, but Russia is now accusing them of being in bed with ISIS. A new report shows that every single Syrian refugee admitted into the U.S. since the Paris attacks have been Sunni Muslim. We were just talking about this off the air. How many refugees do you think that Saudi Arabia has taken in?
Saudi Arabia has taken in none. The only Arab country in the Middle East that has taken in a lot of refugees has been Jordan. And I kind of feel sorry for Jordan. I think this King Hussein is well-meaning, and he's lucky that the military is 100% behind him. Otherwise, he'd be out of there in 24 hours. But they don't have anything going for them other than American aid. They have no products of any consequence. They have a population of about 6 or 7 million. And they have 1,400,000 refugees from Syria. Can you believe that? 1,400,000.
And they're basically friendly to Israel.
Yes, they are. Well, they have a treaty, just like Egypt. Egypt, Israel, and Jordan are now totally at peace with each other and probably working furiously behind the scenes to work together.
The whole ISIS, Syria, Iraq debacle has drawn in the Russians. The Russians are now accusing Erdogan and Turkey of having a secret alliance. I don't know if it's a secret, but I think there is an alliance there.
Well, I think they've got a point. I think they have a point. I think that absolutely. I think the fact of shooting down that plane and then one of the pilots that parachuted out was shot on the ground by Turks. I'm surprised that Vladimir Putin has held his ire and his wrath in charge, but of course what I'm looking at is, are the Turks going to try to do something about keeping the Russian Navy bottled up in the Black Sea, which they're not supposed to do because the Dardanelles, even though they are controlled by Turkey, it's an international passageway, but they can find an excuse. I don't think Turkey's looking to have a showdown with Russia. I think Erdogan knows that he probably stepped a couple of steps too far. In fact, he wanted to talk to Putin, and Putin said, no, I'm not going to talk to you until I get an apology from you for shooting down our plane.
And it's interesting that, John Kerry and Barack Obama, they care so much about borders when it comes to the Syrian, Turkish, Iraqi border, but yet could care less about the American border. So the hypocrisy is very, very deep with these guys.
The hypocrisy you're talking about is being practiced by people that shouldn't be there in the first place.
Correct. Are we looking at a World War III here with Russia being drawn in?
No. You see, I've heard that before, and I am not being critical in you asking that question. When you think about...
This is your opinion.
Well, no, but when you're talking about a World War III, you're talking about the kind of wars with big armies. You don't have that anymore. What you have now, you've got border wars. You've got the wars that used to exist back in the Middle Ages, if you will. First of all, you got within Islam, you got the Sunnis and the Shias, and Iran being the big noise as far as the Shias are concerned, and Iraq is now the Shias are in control there. And of course, they've got Syria and Lebanon. And Russia is part of the deal. And then you got Saudi Arabia, who is a big Sunni country, and so are the United Arab Emirates. And so.
But you can even split that. The Sunnis become the Wahhabis, and then you've got the Alawites. I mean, factions get really, really splintered there.
Yeah. See, the one thing, the political correctness that we're all being suppressed by is the fact you're not supposed to say that there are bad Muslims. Well, it's like saying in the Second War there really aren't bad Germans. It's those bad Nazis. I mean, who were the Nazis? The Germans. And I'm sorry to say this, but who are the people that are causing the problems? They are. I'm not saying that it's true of all Muslims, or even most Muslims, But the trouble in the world today is coming.
But you can't say that no Muslims have terror ties or have bad ire towards
but the
us.
point is it's coming out of whether it's a misinterpretation of the Quran or whatever it is, it comes out of the desire by a very large segment within the Islamic population to finally get their place in the sun, if you will. You know, they tried that in the 19th century when they had the Mahdi, who was the Messiah, and they had the Fuzzy Wuzzies, and they literally they occupied Khartoum and southern Sudan, and British General Lord Kitchener lost a lot of people fighting them, but he eventually was able to crush them. So they had that thought already back in the 19th century. And now, because this whole idea of the Arab Spring was the biggest delusion that anybody ever had politically, thank God for Egypt, because Egypt already was put in the hands
of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Of the Muslim Brotherhood, with the blessing of the United States, headed by Barack Obama.
Yes, and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, where one goes, the other one's.
And they toppled Libya, and now they want to get rid of Assad. So if you look at the pattern here, you get rid of Assad, and what do you get? You get something 1,000 times worse. If you just look at the pattern of what's happened over the past decade here.
Well, Assad.
And why do they want to get rid of Assad? Do they really want to bring in a radical Muslim government to take over Syria?
Assad represents the interests of Iran and Russia.
Yeah,
that's where it is, and they know darn well that he still has a substantial following. Probably he's got the largest minority of all the minorities that occupy Syria today. So they want him in there because he has that following, and he is being.
Who wants him in there?
Russia and Iran wants him in there.
Right, and our government, Kerry and Obama, want him out. And so who comes in to fill the vacuum? ISIS, yes. Muslim Brotherhood,
yes.
Al-Qaeda.
Yes. I'm not saying that this is done deliberately, but it sure
It is deliberate. Look at the track record.
Well, it's happening. Let's put it
Look
this way.
what they did to Gaddafi. And Hillary Clinton's on record saying, he came, we saw, we killed him.
Just like we still hear about the video that caused the Benghazi problem, which nobody seems to want to take on as being a dirty lie.
Yeah.
The same thing can be said as far as what's going on in the Middle East today. They had an uprising in 2009 in the streets of Tehran.
Oh, okay, Tehran.
Yes, and remember that woman that was shot? She became the heroine, and Obama wouldn't say a word.
Yeah.
He was a new president. He stayed in the background. I think the Khamenei, the imam, would have been toppled. There were enough people in this popular uprising to
And again, what do you replace it with? If the Iranian regime falls, what does it get replaced with?
Well, actually, Iran is very, before the Shah was a fool. I mean, he was a weak leader, and he tried to inculcate himself with other power structures rather than letting a popular government. In fact, he was a bad guy, too.
So was Saddam. But he was better off there than not there.
Well, the Shah was not like Saddam. Shah was a guy who thought just because he was the emperor he could rule because his father did. But in 1952, there was a popular election in Iran, and a guy who was a decent guy, he was not, they tried to paint him to be a communist. He was not a communist. He was a centrist. You know, he wanted to have the kind of government that Turkey had under Kemal Ataturk, which was a successful government. Of course, Kemal Ataturk is now buried in the backlot of history, and now Erdogan is to me, Erdogan is a Islamist.
Yep.
In civil clothing. That's basically, he doesn't wear burnous and he doesn't wear Arab garb, but he definitely wants to impose Sunni Islam on Turkey and anybody else he can get
and speaking
to go
of that,
along with them.
Every single refugee that America has taken in since the Paris attacks have been Sunni Muslims.
Yes, that's very, very interesting, but because they right now have the upper hand.
We need to take a brief time out. Homeland Security, Political Insider, and The Moment in History are coming up. If you want to watch the show or just catch any of the segments that you missed, it's simple, it's free. Just go to our website, theworldreport.com.